Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of your online learning. My name is Dr. Davis and I'm going to be talking to you about the protection against pathogens. So for this work you will need your booklet, something to write with and a piece of scrap paper. If you haven't got a piece of scrap paper you could just write on the back of your booklet, it's not a problem. This video is for anyone who has not completed up to page 39 of the booklet. If you have completed up to page 39 or beyond, then stop this video, go back to Teams and have a look at the second set of core activities. If you haven't completed booklet pages 35 to 39, then carry on. So this week we are going to be looking at describing the three main barriers the body uses to protect against disease or against pathogens. Give examples of how the body's barriers to disease work. We're going to be talking about the two types of white blood cell and describing how they protect against the body against infections. So you might have thought there was just one type of blood cell, but actually there aren't. There's two, and we're going to talk about those later. And we're going to explain how vaccinations work and how they can be used to protect the body from infection. So, what products can we use to protect against pathogens? We've spoken previously about how pathogens spread. We all know that we can wash our hands and use good hygiene, make sure we're drinking clean water, things like that to protect ourselves. But what can we do if a pathogen is on our body to protect ourselves? So there are lots of products that actually you'll encounter every day that you might not realise. And they tend to fall into two general categories. So we have antibacterial, which are used to fight against bacteria, or we can have antifungal, which you may have guessed are used to fight against fungi. Remember, fungi is the word for when we've got more than one fungus. Okay, so antibacterial to fight against bacteria, or antifungal to fight against fungi. Now, how many products do you think you have in your home that have antibacterial agents in them? Have a think now, how many antibacterial household agents can you name? Whilst you're thinking about that, you can pause the video and then fill in the top of page 35. So you'll be writing about antibacterial to fight bacteria, antifungal to fight fungi, that goes in two little gaps at the top of page 35, and then write down on the two lines, partway down page 35, as many antibacterial household agents as you can. And when you've done that, restart the video. So there are actually lots of antibacterial and antifungal products on the market. Here are just some examples. So we've got kitchen cleaner, we've got soap, hand sanitizer we're all very familiar with now, and even deodorant. If you look on all of these images, you'll see that they've all got antibacterial claims, even within the deodorant there, okay? It says antibacterial defense. So all these products are antibacterial, used to fight against bacteria that may be on our body or in our homes. Obviously, we wouldn't put kitchen cleaner on our bodies, but to try and protect our bodies against these household pathogens. So these products are developed by drug companies, and they develop lots of different versions of the product, if you like. So when they decide that they are going to make an antibacterial spray, for example, they'll make lots of different versions of that spray and they will test it before they decide which one works best. So if we look at the example here of an antifungal cream, okay, so a cream to treat fungi, the company who's trying to develop the cream will develop lots of different formulations or several different formulations, and they will test them to see how good are they at killing the fungus that they're trying to kill, they're trying to stop. And they'll do this in laboratory tests. So in these tests and in these laboratory techniques, what they do is they take what's called an agar plate. This is a picture of an agar plate here. And it's basically a plastic dish that's got a lid as well that's clear, and inside is like a jelly, a clear jelly, and that's called agar. It's a special chemical that we use to do these kind of experiments. And they use aseptic techniques. Now that sounds complicated, that's a weird word, you might not know what that means. It just means that they're going to do everything they can to stop any other pathogens or any other contaminants getting into this experiment. So what they will do, and this is an experiment that we can do in school, some of you may have done it already, is we can take a fungi, okay, or a pathogen of some description, and we can put it onto this cotton wool bud here, okay, and then this is spread very gently across the surface of the agar backwards and forwards until the whole plate, the whole agar plate, is covered with the pathogen that we want to investigate. At that point, what then happens is you would make some little holes to remove some of that agar. So you then end up with a plate that's got little holes in it, and in those little holes you put the cream or the product that you want to test. So you would put the product in, you would then seal it up to make sure no other pathogens are going to get in there to affect your experiment, and you would then put it in an incubator at a low temperature to try and help that pathogen grow and see if your creams have any effect against it. And what you would end up with is something that looks like this. So you can see on here, these lines going across, that's where the scientist has spread the pathogen across the surface of the agar, and it's grown to give this kind of fuzzy appearance. These circles you can see, these are the circles, the holes that the scientist made and has filled with the different creams. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different creams that they're testing. Okay, so in a laboratory, these are just 7 versions of the one cream they're trying to develop. Now we can see these two down here, they don't seem to have made any difference. The cream is in the circle and they haven't really affected anything around them. So these creams aren't actually working. They're not killing off any of the pathogen. These ones here, this one and this one, you can see we're starting to get a bit of a halo almost, a bit of an area around the cream where the pathogen isn't able to grow. And then these ones, we see a much more pronounced effect. And in fact, this one over here, you can see we've got a very large area around the cream where no pathogen has been able to grow. Okay, so in the case of a fungi or a fungus, the fungi have not been able to grow around this antifungal cream because the antifungal cream has killed off the pathogen that was around it, the fungi that was around it. And this is the most effective cream that's on our plate here. So of these 7 creams, this one has the largest area around it where there is no fungus growing. And so this one will be the most effective cream. And if we were doing development in a company, in a laboratory, we would be picking this formulation, this version of our product to try and develop further, because this one is the most effective because it has the largest area around it where no fungi have grown. So these were good antibacterial products, antifungal products are fine for trying to kill anything that's trying to get to our body, or that may be on the surface of our body. How does our body itself, so without using any products, what can our body do to protect itself against pathogens? So I'm now going to play you a short video clip, and on your scrap piece of paper or on the back of your booklet, I want you to write down as many different ways as you can that the body protects itself against pathogens. So listen to the video, it's going to describe different ways that the body protects itself, and you're going to try and write those different ways down. So here comes the video.
Your body is under constant attack. Microorganisms like bacteria and viruses are all around you. Too small to see, these pathogens can invade your body and damage your cells, making you ill. But you have a highly complex defense system that seeks out and kills foreign invaders. Your immune system. It uses 3 lines of defense. First, there are physical barriers. your skin, tiny hairs, mucus, and tears all act to keep foreign objects out. Your second line of defense is to heal open wounds quickly. Platelets and fibrin in your blood rush to plug the wound site and form a scab. And white blood cells move in to engulf and digest bacteria. These white blood cells are called phagocytes. They seek out and consume foreign cells. But another type of white blood cell launches a more sophisticated response. The lymphocytes provide the body's third line of defense. Lymphocytes can recognize specific invaders, destroy them, and crucially remember them if they strike again. The two types of white blood cell, phagocytes and lymphocytes, are the key worker cells of the immune system. They are your body's defending army against infection.
Okay, so there was lots of information in that video. And the information in terms of the 3 types of protection from disease can be found on page 37 of your booklet. Okay, so some of you may have noticed that. So if you turn to page 37 now, see if you manage to get all of those defences, the 3 main defences. So we have physical barriers, chemical barriers, and the immune system. And we're going to speak about each of those in turn. If you want to make any additional notes on page 37, then please do, but the basics of the information that you need are there. So physical barriers. This is the first line of defense for our body, and the main physical barrier is our skin, and it's actually the largest organ in the body. Okay, if you think about it, your skin covers your entire body, and that is classed as an organ, so it's the largest organ in your body and prevents entry of microbes that cause disease, so pathogens, into your body. You can see on the image here we've got an artist impression of the skin. So here we've got a hair follicle coming out of the skin, and you can see on the surface of the skin here, these things here would be bacteria. Okay, there's all sorts of different things on the surface of our skin. If we looked microscopically, if we looked under a microscope, you would be able to see there are different things that sit on the surface of your skin. But as long as they are just sitting on the surface of your skin, they're probably not going to do us too much harm. In the case of COVID, that's why it's really important to wash your hands, because the virus will sit on the surface of your skin. Your skin will stop it getting into your body. It will work as a physical barrier. But if the virus then gets anywhere near your nose, your eyes, your mouth, that works as a route into your body, as would any cuts in your skin. That opens up the barrier and allows things to come through. But as long as your skin is intact, that forms a fantastic physical barrier against pathogens. Our second line of defense are chemical barriers. So you have stomach acid in your stomach. It's a very, very strong acid, and that kills any microbes that might be on any food or anything you eat or ingest. There are also chemicals in our eyes and our nose that help kill pathogens and microbes. It's one reason why you might get a lot of snot sometimes, because that is part of your body's defense to try and stop those pathogens getting up your nose. The chemicals in your eyes are found in tears, and your tears are actually antibacterial, so you're producing an antibacterial product anytime tears come out of your eyes. If you get something in your eye, then often your eyes will water. That is the body's chemical defense to try and get whatever it is that's in your eye that is irritating your eye out. Obviously, we can cry for other reasons, but the tears that are there are antibacterial and work as a chemical barrier against pathogens. Our third main line of defense is our immune system. So the immune system is where we have white blood cells that help prevent the spread of disease. And as was mentioned in the video, and as we mentioned at the beginning, there are two different types of white blood cell. They're called phagocytes and lymphocytes. And there is another video for you to watch after this one, which will give you information about both of those. But let's look at each of those in turn. And again, the information for this can be found on page 38 of your booklet. So if you turn to page 38, if you want to make any additional notes about lymphocytes or phagocytes, you can see there's room there. You can just add some notes on there if you want to. Lymphocytes are specific. We saw in the video there, these are the specialized white blood cells. So they recognize specific pathogens and they will attack them by releasing antibodies that bond to the pathogen and basically stop it working, stop it being able to attack your body. So they're very specific. Each lymphocyte will target a certain pathogen. So there's lots of different lymphocytes, if you like, all looking at different pathogens. And if they recognize those in the body, they will attack them and stop them from working and destroy them. Phagocytes are non-specific. So phagocytes travel around your body, and if they see a pathogen, they want to give it a great big hug. But the pathogens won't want that, because if a phagocyte gives them a hug, it actually goes through what's called phagocytosis. And once the phagocyte has wrapped itself around the pathogen, it basically breaks it down so that the pathogen is destroyed and it can't harm us anymore. And as I said, this process is called phagocytosis. So you can see here, this is our phagocyte with its strange shaped nucleus. The bacteria is engulfed by the phagocyte. Okay, so the phagocyte wraps itself around the bacteria, and it will then digest the bacteria, and then it will just get rid of any leftovers, which will be totally harmless to the body. So here is a video on phagocytosis, where you can see the process of a phagocyte engulfing some bacteria. Now when they talk about a neutrophil, they are talking about a phagocyte. Okay, so when you're ready, if you click play in the middle of the video and then move on to the next slide when you're done. So the last area to look at, so these were our three body's defences, so physical barriers, chemical barriers and immune systems. We can also add to our body's defence, and we can do that through vaccines, and we're going to look at how vaccines protect against pathogens. So how many vaccination programs have you heard of? I'm sure you've heard of at least one, because there is one very huge vaccination program in the news right now. So have a think, how many others can you think of? Just pause the video and have a think. So some you might have heard of are flu vaccinations. We get the MMR vaccination, so that's measles, mumps and rubella. HPV, which works against cervical cancer. And as I mentioned, we're all aware of the COVID-19 vaccine program that's happening right now. You will have all, chances are you will have all had a lot of vaccinations, even when you were very, very small. So in Scotland, there is the NHS vaccination program, and you can see that even from a very young age, even at just 8 weeks old, you are given vaccinations. Things like meningitis B, a vaccine against the rotavirus, pneumococcal vaccine, we've heard about this in a previous video. So all these vaccinations happen. This is all for babies. Over this side we have for children aged 1 to 15. So some of you may have some vaccinations coming up. And then there are standard vaccinations for adults. Okay, the really common one is the flu vaccine. So what I'd like you to do is on top page 39, I'd like you to fill in some vaccination programs. You don't need to write all of these down. there is a space for 3 at the top of page 39. So pause the video and fill in 3 vaccination programs at the top of page 39 and then unpause when you're ready to continue. I'd now like you to watch a video on how vaccines work. So what you'll need to do is to click on the play button in the middle of the screen and that will play for you. If the presentation moves on to the next slide, just go back one slide and click on play. You'll be able to watch the video there. Once you've watched the video, you can then move on to the next slide. Okay, so hopefully that gave you an idea of how vaccines work. And now, from the information that you had in that video, what I'd like you to do is to try and arrange these 4 statements into order. So on the bottom of page 39, you have got 4 empty boxes with arrows between them. And what I'd like you to do is try to write these statements in each of those boxes in order. So if you pause the video now and try to write them in the right order on page 39. So these are not in the right order at the moment. So you're going to take each one of these in turn and try and put them into the right box on page 39. Once you've done that, unpause the video. So on page 39, you've got the boxes that look like this. And in that first box, you should have written that part of a pathogen is injected into the body. That's the first step in a vaccination program. Next step is that lymphocytes respond to the foreign pathogen and produce antibodies to fight it. The third step is that lymphocytes store a memory of the pathogen, and then if they're exposed to the full pathogen later, lymphocytes respond much quicker and destroy the pathogen. So again, looking at what we've covered in this video, you should now hopefully be able to describe the 3 main barriers the body uses to protect against disease. So that's our physical barriers, our chemical barriers, and our immune system. You should be able to give examples of how these barriers work against disease to protect against pathogens. So for example, a physical barrier, we have our skin. So that is a physical barrier that stops pathogens getting into our body. Our tears are antibacterial, so they can fight against any bacteria that may be in our eyes. We have chemicals in our nose, in our stomach acid. These are all the examples you should be able to give. You should be able to name the 2 types of white blood cell, so lymphocytes and phagocytes, and describe how they protect the body against infections. So our lymphocytes are the specific white blood cells that recognize a certain pathogen and release antibodies to fight against that pathogen. Our phagocytes are the ones that will engulf any pathogen they find and will then break that pathogen down to prevent it damaging the body. And finally, you should be able to explain how vaccinations can be used to protect the body from infection. So that was the TED video that we watched that had lots of information in it about the smallpox vaccine. You can always go back and watch that again if you want to listen to that information again to make sure you really understand it. But you should be able to explain how vaccines are used to protect us from infections. So if you're happy, you can do all of that, then that's great. You can move on to task 2, which is to watch a video about lymphocytes and phagocytes. So that will just give you some more information and really cement that information. And then you have task 3, which is to do with mental well-being, which is equally important as our physical well-being. So physical well-being is all to do with our body, and if our body is in good health, if we've got a strong immune system, things like that. Our mental health is obviously to do with our brain and is actually very important. Our physical health and our mental health are very closely linked. If we have a problem with one, it often affects the other. So your third task for this week is actually related to your mental health and to try and help with your well-being and give you an opportunity to express yourself and to pass that on to your class teacher, who I'm sure will be thrilled to see your input. Once you've completed those 3 core tasks and uploaded your part from task 3, you can then wait for the quiz that will be coming out on Thursday again. You can complete that. There's also an extension task if you'd like to try that. If anyone is super keen and looking for other science work to do, you could always have a look at some of the links in the second set of core tasks, but that's not compulsory. You don't have to do that. That's just if you're interested. So if you have any questions, if there's anything that hasn't been clear, you don't quite understand, you want further help with, please get in touch with your class teacher, and thank you for listening.